Thank you. So, in the last class, we had designed a form in order to perform the CRUD operations. We had started with first as insert operation, and we created a database, which I'll repeat once again in the next type of connection, which is disconnected. Okay, so here what we have done in the last class was we just created a simple form in which we have asked the user to enter a student name and choose a course, and then click on or enter year of joining. And once he clicked on submit, we took them to the C# part. In the C# part, what I had done was I had taken all the three data which the user has given in neat format from the text boxes in the drop down list, as well as converting whatever is required into its corresponding format. And once I've got that data, I created a connection, okay, which is coming from SQL connection, which is part of this namespace called using system.data.sql client. Okay, so and we just open that connection using a connection string, which is given here, and this will be written only once per project, guys. I am writing it one by one in one file because I want to create every operation as an individual or independent file. That's why I'm creating it like this. But after I finish explaining the concepts, when we do an actual project, we will be writing this line of code, what you see, only once per project. Okay, please understand that, because it's just a connection string. It's the connection to the database that will normally be kept in a configuration file and called, but I'll show you another way in which you can keep it separately in one file and then call it. I hope you guys remember with what we did in Android. We created that adapter in a separate file in which all database connections were written, which means you need not bother about database at all in other files. Only one file will entirely talk to all databases, and I'll use those methods which are there in that class in my corresponding other files. For example, if I have insert a separate page, retrieve in a separate page, update in a separate page, etc., etc., I'll do all those things with that particular point. Okay, so now let's move on. And once you create this particular section, what you see, the first two lines, establishing a connection object and then opening that connection, is going to be same irrespective of what you want to do. Whether you want to retrieve, insert, update, or delete, you have to open the SQL connection. Okay, that is very important. Please remember that. After that, what we did was we created an object of command, which is SQL command object, and we need to pass two parameters to this command class. Okay, the constructor of SQL command needs two parameters. One, in simple terms, what command do you want to execute? Second part is where do you want to execute it? Okay, so the first one, what I've written is the SQL query. If you notice here, insert into table name, and then what are the three values? Why I'm inserting three values is because one is auto increment. And then I've given the values as name, course, and year of joining, which I took from the user here in the first three lines. Okay, so once that is done, once the command as well as everything is passed, it will not automatically get executed. You will have to inform to execute that particular command. So this is the line which will do that. There's one statement which I'm highlighting. This is enough. But then just to find out whether that query what I passed has executed or not, we need to say that if command.execute non-query. By the way, please note that this execute non-query is not used for retrieval. It's only used for insert, update, and delete. If it is not a query, okay, anything apart from a query, which is, in other words, anything apart from select can be done using execute non-query. And what will this execute non-query return? It will return the number of rows which got executed, okay, or affected. You can see that it executes this particular statement against the connection and returns the number of rows which got affected. Same thing as our execute update, if you remember in JDBC. Okay, same thing, I'm going to use it here. So I'm saying cmd.execute non-query. If that returns greater than 0, which means at least 1, or you can directly put equal to 1, doesn't matter. Okay, so in this case it doesn't matter because I'm only inserting one record and I want 1 to be returned. Okay, so I've just put in general greater than 0. Then I say response.write inserted successfully. Please note, response.write is not the correct one. Just for me to check whether it is working, I'm using response.write. Just like how in JavaScript you write alert and check whether it is working, I've put response.write. I never recommend this when you write the code for the client. Okay, for the real world, never use this. This is just for testing. Okay, and in case if I wanted to put an alert dialog, okay, or if I wanted to use like sweet alert or something like that from JavaScript, then you'll have to write JavaScript code inside this, not just response.write inserted successfully. Okay, right now this is for my understanding. So I think in the last class we had finished till this. So first what we are going to do is we are going to just revise what our table looks like. So I'm going to Server Explorer. I had created a database called studentdb.mdf. Okay, and I'm going to open that, and inside that there is the tables, and this table is what I had created. So let me right click and open that particular table, or just say show table data. Let me see what data is already existing there in that table. Right now I have two records, 191701 and 02. Two records are there. Okay, let me just use this page what we had created to insert a new record and check if it's working. And once it works, we'll go to the next part, which is retrieval. Okay, so let's do one by one. Like today I want to complete retrieval and then update. Delete, I'll leave it up to you guys. Okay, so it's going to be similar to update itself. So let's check if it works. So I'm opening up the insert.aspx, in which we had already designed using ASP.NET. Okay, please note, even though we had used so much of ASP.NET and stuff, when it comes to the output, it will be plain HTML. Remember that. Okay, so let me just insert another record. So I'll just say Puja MCA 2018. Okay, let me just click on add. Please note, till now, whatever I type is just HTML. It's none of this is gone to ASP.NET. The moment you click on this button, our method gets triggered here. btn insert underscore click, and then it comes to server side. Okay, so this will trigger a server side execution. And once it goes to the server, it takes all these data in this corresponding what do you call text boxes and controls, and then goes to the server side. In the server side, this code gets executed, and from the server, this response is coming. Please note, whatever comes from the server is basically a response. Remember that. Okay, so let me go back and let me click on add. Okay, so once it is done, please note here somewhere on the top, you'll see that the response.write has come. Even though you wrote at the last line of code, it is coming on the top because it is coming from the server and it is pushed to the client. That's why it's coming on the top of the page. So it's saying inserted successfully. Let's go and check that in my table, which is here in Visual Studio. Let me just go and refresh this and see if that data is reflected here. Okay, I guess you can see that the data is reflected what I just added. I just gave three data, Puja, MCA and 2018. The number is auto increment and the data is inserted. Okay, so insert is working in what architecture is this? Connected architecture. Please remember that. Okay, I've used connected architecture to insert a data. So I just need two of those particular keywords. One is connection, another one is command. As simple as that. Okay, so now let's move on to retrieval. Okay, now instead of coming back to the database and checking every time whether the record is there or not, it's better to show it to the user in the like say for example, if you are admin, I want to see all that information in one table structure in my page itself. So for that, let's create a new ASPX page. So let's create a new one. I'm going to click on add new item, and I'm going to choose web form with the master page, and I'm going to name it as display.aspx or retrieve.aspx, whatever you want to name it as. Okay, so I'm going to name it as display.aspx. The reason is I've seen that most of you make retrieve spelling mistakes, because I've had that experience in JSP. So I'm just going to name it as display so that I hope that spelling will not be a problem. All right, display.aspx. In this one, what I'm going to do is, please note the black part of the top and the MyASP.NET application at the bottom are coming from master page. All right, so if you want to edit them, you'll have to go to the .master file and then edit it. That's why this mouse is not allowing me to edit anything here, because this is actually not here. If you see the source, nothing is there actually. Okay, it only says that the main master page file is there in site.master. You'll have to go and change it there if you want to change anything. So let me go back to the design. So here, first of all, let me just put a label. Okay, and I'll put that labels property, labels text as list of students. Okay, I'll just put that, and I'll just change the font size. Okay, I can change it here itself with respect to ASPX itself. All right, size, let me just give large. Okay, so I've given list of students as the label. Now, please note, there are a lot of ways in which you can display the data which is required through ASP.NET, but I'm going to use something called data control. Okay, in JSP or PHP, in any technology you have come across so far, how would you retrieve and display the user all the list of students? You will create a HTML table. Okay, I'll just recollect what we had done in JSP subject. I'm just recollecting that we create a HTML table and we put the rows or the table header properly, and then we write a while loop or a for loop inside that, and we'll say for every record which is there. Like for example, in JDBC we had written while result set dot next, while r is dot next, if you remember, and then inside that we put tr, td, and etc, etc. Okay, when it comes to MySQL also you would have done the same thing. Any technology for that sake, so far what we have come across, you would have done that. But please note how .NET makes it much simpler for us. You need not worry about data, table and all those things. All you need to do is give .NET what is the data or where is the data coming from. That's all. So let's do that let's go to Toolbox. In that one, you see there is a separate control called data controls. Okay, I want you to just go through that. We are not going to use everything, guys. There are so many controls available, and it is like an ocean of data which is available there. But I'm not going to take up everything because it's not required to learn everything in .NET. But what is essential for us, we'll pick it up. Okay, I wanted to just go through all the controls which are available in data section of the toolbox. Okay, I am going to use something called grid view. Okay, I want that grid view is a very powerful component. Okay, I'll show you how it is. Let me just drag and drop that into my page, or let's double click on it. It'll come something there. Okay, so this is a grid view. It might not look as you expect, but it is very much powerful. Okay, let me show you the source. The source looks only this much. Okay, this is the code, grid view, ASP colon grid view. So why is it looking different in the design, and how will it be manipulated when you run the code? Okay, please note all these things are taken care by ASP.NET. All we need to do is instruct.NET how to work and what data to display. That's all. So let's do that now. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the grid view. I'll go to its properties, and obviously I'll rename it properly. So this is grid view 1, it is written. Let me put GV, grid view short form, and then I'll put students, because I'm going to use this grid view to display students data. Okay, done. And the second thing is, even though there is something called grid view in this source, please note when it comes back to the browser. All right, please understand this, guys. This is an ASP colon grid view control. If I run this program and I bring this back to browser, a HTML browser will not be able to understand what is grid view. Okay, so a grid view will be converted into something in your browser. Okay, you can assume now what data or what control will it be converted into. Okay, in HTML it will be converted into a table. Please understand that. Grid view, for your understanding, for the developer's understanding, when it comes to the browser does not have a concept called grid view, rather it has a concept called table. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back to the design. Okay, let me click on that grid view. Let me go to its properties and find a property called CSS class. Okay, I'm going to apply a property called CSS class, and I'm going to apply the property of a normal table. So let's say table hyphen bordered, or table hyphen responsive, or table hyphen hover, whatever you want to give. Okay, I'm just going to put table hyphen bordered. Let me press enter. You can see how that grid view transforms. Okay, that the grid view transforms into how a table, bootstrap table would be looking like. That's all. So we have finished it here. Let's move on, and that's all, guys. The design part is done. Okay, just drag and drop the control, do some design on it. Your work here is done with respect to the design. Now, what about the logic? Logic is you just connect to the database and tell from where the data is coming. Okay, just give, okay, let me rephrase that. Just give the source of data to this control, and this control will display it properly. You need not sit and write table tr while rs.next, then retrieve each and everything and put it in a format. Nothing is required. Okay, we'll be working much about this particular grid view in another class. Okay, right now let me not focus much on the grid view. Okay, another class I'll take only grid view for all CRUD operations. Okay, so let me just keep it like this. Let's go to the code. So if I want to go to code directly from ASPX, just press F7 on your keyboard and it will take you to the source code of that particular file. Say for example, I was at display.aspx. When I press F7, it takes me to display.aspx.cs. Okay, now please understand, in the insert.aspx, as soon as you clicked on the button, you would like something to happen. What about display.aspx? I don't want to click on anything. Okay, if you want, you can keep it like that. After clicking, you can retrieve the data and display something like that. But imagine like this. As soon as you open the display.aspx, I would like to see the data. Okay, how do I do that? Look at that. There is already a method for that particular purpose. As soon as the page loads, what do you want me to do? It's always blank. In this insert.aspx, you see it is still blank, because as soon as the page loads, I don't want you to do anything in insert, because I want the user to insert something or type something in the text boxes, then click on submit, then I want to insert. Okay, I hope you guys understand. In display.aspx, it's a different case. I want this to happen as soon as the page loads. So I'm going to write the code here. What should I write? Okay, it's very simple. One, you will have to connect. It doesn't matter whether you are retrieving, inserting, updating or deleting. Connection is going to be compulsory. So since I've already written the code, let me just take those 2 lines of code. Okay, let me put it in SQL connection. Here, there might not be a correct word because there is showing an error. The reason why this error is coming is because you have imported or you have copy pasted SQL connection, but you have not given me from what namespace this one comes. This is a different class. This is a different class. You have not told from which namespace it is coming. So the namespace is system.data.SQL client. I think I've already discussed that in the last class and also in the ADO.NET theory. Please do remember this. This is the namespace what we are going to use. Okay, so now the error is gone. Now it understands this is SQL connection and it is ready. Second one, I need to make sure that you execute a command which is select star from table name, something like that. So let's say SQL command. Let me name it as CMD is equal to new SQL command. If you guys remember, can you tell me what are the 2 things I need to pass here? Anyone? Quickly. I need to pass 2 parameters to the SQL command. What are those 2 commands? What are the 2 things which I need to pass for an SQL command class? Anyone?
So first is the query.
Root and password. Ooh. You are still
Sir?
in MySQL. Please come back to .NET. First is the?
First is the query, sir.
Okay.
Then is the connection.
Okay, so first thing is what do you want to execute? Second thing is where do you want to execute? Okay, so what do you want to execute? Let me just say I want to execute select star from table name. Okay, select star from table name is actually a string according to just like how we did in JDBC or even in Android. Please remember the SQL commands are not native to your programming language. Okay, so select star from table name makes sense in databases. It doesn't make any sense in programming languages. So according to programming languages, all commands are basically string. Okay, remember that. So what is the command you want me to execute? I want you to execute select star from, I guess my table name is TBL student details. All right, this is my command. Okay, please note, I hope you can see this is my command. All right, second one. What is the second parameter? Where do you want to execute this query? Command is select star from table name. Where do you want to execute that? On top of the connection. Okay, you cannot directly talk to connection, but you can talk to the object of connection because connection is a class. You cannot talk to the class, you talk to the object of that particular connection class, which is con. That's the name which I've given, so it's easy for us to remember. So this is the query. That's it. Okay, now please understand, as I've already told, we have 4 operations, right? Retrieval, insert, update and delete. The odd man out here is retrieval because all the other 3 things are going to change something in the database. So they are not called queries, they are non-queries. But when it comes to this is a query. All right, so which means I'm just going to retrieve. I'm not going to change anything in the database. I just want you to retrieve and display whatever is there. Okay, let me rephrase what I just said. I want you to execute this query and read out whatever is there in that particular result. Okay, so for that purpose, I am going to use another keyword. Please remember this keyword, SQL data reader. I hope you guys can remember. Okay, this is if you have to retrieve. But what if I had to insert, update or delete? Only 2 things are required. Connection, command. You establish the connection, execute the query, you will get result. Very simple. But when you are trying to retrieve, you need to read data, right? So when SQL data reader is the class which I am going to use. I'm going to name it as dr, data reader. Okay, just remember that is equal to. I am not going to create a new one. Rather, I am going to ask that command to execute the reader, okay, and return. Okay, let's see what is that. Please note, remaining everything, I've created a new instance. For data reader, you are not going to create a new instance. Rather, you are going to call the object of command and then say execute reader. Please note what happens is the result set sends the SQL command to the SQL command connection and builds an SQL data reader. Okay, it returns a data reader object. That is what I'm going to store it in dr. So I'm going to say execute reader. That's it. Okay, now please note how they are connected to each other. Data reader is executed when created using the command object. The command object is created using the connection object. I hope you guys get the flow. All the three are connected to each other, and it is not exactly like the JDBC, but idea is still the same. Okay, so I've executed this. If you have seen that in the same command we have typed in JDBC like this: result set space rs is equal to statement dot execute query. Okay, please remember, you don't write result set space rs is equal to new result set. You don't create a new instance of the result set. Rather, you say statement dot execute query. That execute query will return a result set which will be stored in that rs. Same thing here. Execute reader will create a data reader object and that will be stored in dr. Very simple. Okay, now the last part of the code is I am going to see right now what I have done is I've established connection, I've executed this command, and whatever the return came. Okay, please note, if it is insert update or delete, I'll only get how many rows got affected. But if it is select star from table name, I'll get n number of data. Not just a number, I'll get n number of data. So what happens here is the dr which is there is a connected object, which means if I close the connection in between while I'm reading, I'll lose all my data. Okay, I'll show that in working shortly. But remember this, I have my data reader. Now what is my next step? Okay, please note, in the design, you have a grid view. All I need to tell that grid view is the source of the grid view. The data source or the source of data for the grid view is stored or is kept in data reader object. Okay, let me repeat it again. I need to tell the source of data for the grid view is stored in the data reader object. Okay, so how do I make sure that it is mapped? I just call the grid view object. Please note, I created it as GV students, grid view of students dot data source. Please note the suggestion automatically comes there. Data source. Okay, the source of data for that grid view is equal to what? Nothing but dr. Okay. That's all. There's one more concept which I need to explain. So I've just stopped till here. Please do go through the code. First, establish connection. Second, execute the command. Third, create the command. Third one is execute that command and store it as a data reader because I'm retrieving. But imagine if I was inserting or updating or deleting, all I would do is I'll just say command.execute non-query. But if you are retrieving, you'll say execute reader. Now the data is stored in data reader. Okay. Next line, what you see is I am mapping it to a grid view. Grid view dot data source is equal to whatever is stored in the data reader. Done. Now, I hope till this it's clear. Let me move on to the next thing which I need you to remember. Okay, there is a concept in ASP.NET or in general.NET called data binding. Okay, I guess you would have come across this word, but let me keep it as simple as possible. Please remember, till now, till line 20, whatever I have typed is been executed or has been executing on the server side. Okay, this is why I kept on repeating that you should understand where client-side code executes and when server-side code comes into picture. These things cannot be done on the client side. These are all happening on the server side. Now, please note, the data source has been set to data reader on the server side. But when it comes to the client side, the data reader might lose or the grid view might lose the data which has been mapped in the server. Okay. In order for the data to be retained, even when it has reached the browser, please note till this line what I have typed where the cursor is blinking, the code has been executed on the server. So the data is right now in the server, but you will have to bring that data back to the client so that the client can see. So what concept do we use for that? We use a simple concept called students dot that grid view dot data bind. Okay, just say binds the data source to the grid view control. That's all I want to understand. Why am I binding? Just imagine that I have a set of papers. Okay, let's say every record is like one page. If I have 1,000 pages and I hold them by hand and I run towards the server or run towards the client, the papers might be flying away. Okay, so what I do is I bind them or just put a staple or something like that and then bring it to the person which you are supposed to submit. Like for example, assignments or records for that sake. Okay, so you'll have to bind them before you bring it back to the client. So similarly here we just use the word data bind. Okay, please note this one line makes a big difference. I know it's not a big deal, but please note if you miss this line, even though all the code will execute properly, no error will be there, everything will be proper, but you will not see any output on the browser. The reason is you'll have to bind the data which you got from the data source. I hope you guys understand. Let me just show you the output. That's it, guys. Retrieval is done. Okay, please note you are not monitoring about data table, how tr, td, nothing is required. Just need to make sure that you establish the connection and then set the data source with respect to corresponding whatever is coming as a data source. Let me just run this page and let's see what is the output. Right now display.aspx is opening up because I was there in that particular place. So it will not be as proper as we expect, but we can easily manipulate it however we want. Now you see that the data has come up here. I have student ID, student name, student course, student year of joining. All the data which is there in the database is now retrieved and displayed here neatly without me writing TR, TD and all those things. But let's go to the source of this particular page and see how it looks like. Okay, this is the part I wanted to focus on. Look at this table. A table has been created. Okay, and there is a table header with student ID and you have seen the table data. Okay, I guess you can see that this is generated without even we writing one line of code for that particular purpose. Okay, but we have got the output as we were looking for. I hope you guys can understand. I put a label here and then I put a grid view, and the grid view has now changed into a decent table which came back to the browser and I'm able to see the data neatly. Okay, this is retrieval in ASPX. Okay, there are different ways, guys. I'm just showing one of the ways. I'm showing the simplest way possible. Okay, later we will manipulate according to whatever is required. We will be using grid view itself to manipulate a lot of data. I'll show that shortly to you. Okay, so I guess you have understood the retrieval part. Now let's go to the next part of updating. Okay, so first of all, we have created an insert. Okay, and before that, let me do one more thing. Just say that this will be the first page to be loaded and the user is seeing this. Imagine you would like the user in this page itself at the bottom, you want to give a link to go to insert.aspx. I'm just connecting the pages. So let's do that. I'll go to toolbox, and after the grid view, I would like to add a link. Okay, a hyperlink. Please note, if you use ahref also is fine, but I am going to use the .NET way because I want you to understand the code for that also. So, so that you can programmatically take the user to one page to or the other. Okay, so let me just click on hyperlink. It will be added to the bottom of the page. Hyperlink. Let me click on that. Let me go to properties. Okay, and let me just click on. Okay, let me just change that text to add a new student. Let me keep that hyperlink like that. Now I wanted to just see what is the important property here is navigate to which URL. Okay, so I can just choose from this three dotted line. I can choose and say to which URL do you want me to take it. I wanted to take to insert.aspx. I'll just choose that and then click on OK. Done. So now let me run the program once again. Okay, so when you run the program now, the table will be there, the label will be there on the top. Below that, there will be a small hyperlink, which when you click on it will take you to insert.aspx. So that I've linked it like this. For example, let me click here. It takes me to insert.aspx. You are supposed to give links on the top so that it's easy for the user to manipulate. Okay, so let me just go back to display. You see, in the display page I am right now, I can just click on this hyperlink to take me to the next page without writing one line of code. All right, now programmatically, how do I take him to the next page? Okay, programmatically we call them response.redirect, which I will do shortly. Okay, so let's say that let's do that programmatically. How do I bring them to the next page? Let's go to insert.aspx. Instead of showing inserted successfully, let me take him to the next page. So I'll just say response dot redirect. I guess those who have worked with JSP, this is not a big deal because it's the same idea. Response object dot send redirect we write in JSP. Here it is just say response dot redirect. Where do you want me to go? Okay, I'll just put within double quotes the file name. Please be very careful of the file name. I'll just say insert.aspx because I'm in the same page, right? This is like a relative path. I need not give an absolute path. I just said because display.aspx and insert.aspx are in the same place. So I'm going to just click. Let's see what happens. Now what happens is that I'm going to click on insert. Okay, imagine if I am in display.aspx. Okay, let me open display.aspx first. So this will be the first page which is shown to me, in which I have 3 students already. Let me click on add a new student and let me add a new record saying Jacob MSc 2017. Let me just add this and click on add student. Please note what I had written here is once you click on add and if the query was successful, it should take me to insert, sorry, not insert. I want you to take me back to display.aspx. Because I want you to go back to that particular place. Okay, so please remember that. Okay, so this change what I did will not be executed because the project is still running. Okay, so let me just restart it. Okay, please note I'm gonna take you to the display.aspx. After you have inserted, take me to retrieved page or the display of all records page. Now let me run it once again. Let me go to display. So as soon as I open, I get this page. There are 3 records. Let me click on new record. Let me add a new one, MSCST 2018. I'm going to click on add. Okay, so let me just click on add student. Please note what should happen is if the query is proper, I should be going back to display.aspx programmatically. Please note only if the query is successful. If the query is not successful, nothing will happen. It will stay in the same page and throw an error or something like that. So let me go back. Let me click on add student. Please note it will go just like that because it's not on the internet. It is on my local machine. So once it is done, it's been added. So the data has been added, and when you come back to retrieve or display.aspx, that data which I just added also has been added now. Okay, this is also another way of redirecting. So I guess you guys get the idea here. Now let's move on to a very, very important concept. Okay, update. So okay, sorry, 1 minute guys. Okay, while the system loads, what I'm going to do in update is please note everything what we had done, the retrieval, the insert, everything we had kept separately as an own entity we had kept. Now what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create update also separately. Okay, so first what I'm going to do is in the update, I'm going to create a structure just like insert. Okay, on the top, I think we had done this in one of the class, but anyway, let me just do it once again. I'll just take it up. Okay, let me add a new ASPX file. So please note when you click on add, if you have already added it before, you will get it at the bottom here itself. This is the recently used template, web form with master page. So let me just click on it. I'm going to give the name as update. So site.master, okay, I got update.aspx. All right, so now I have update.aspx, and please note the design is right now nothing there because just the whole master page has been shown to you. Let me go to insert.aspx. Okay, the design. Please note what I am going to do in update.aspx is exactly same as insert. Only one difference is this data above this. I'm going to say choose a particular student. Okay, guys, understand or picturize what I'm trying to tell. The same structure, one more column, one more row I'm going to add on the top and say choose a student. Okay, and once you choose a particular student, from there I am going to once you choose a particular student, I'm going to retrieve all the records of that student and display here so that you can update it. which means almost all controls are same. So can I copy paste it? Yes, you can. Let me just go back from the label till this table. I'm copying it. Let me go back to update.aspx. Let me go to the source, and inside the content, let me paste it. Okay, I'm repeating it again. What I did was, you can do it from the design also. Now you see update.aspx also has the same thing as insert.aspx, which means I need not retrieve or write everything from the beginning. Rather than that, I can keep it as simple as this. Now I'm going to just change the control here. First one, instead of add a new student, I'm going to name it as update student record. Okay, update student detail. Now, right now here, instead of enter student name, I want one more extra column. So I'm going to insert a row above, and here I'm going to say choose a student. Okay, here what I'm going to do is I'm going to display or put a drop down list. Okay, please note I've just added one more extra control here, choose a student, and I'm putting drop down list as students record will be retrieved and put here. Okay, so let me just go to the properties and name them as DDL students. Drop down list of students name will be coming there. And one more thing is I want to put the class as form hyphen control so that it looks like a bootstrap control. Okay, that is done. And please note this, I do not know how many students are there in the database, and I cannot sit and add each and every student's record here. So what should I do? I should use database. Okay, please understand. After this drop down, it's very simple because I know how many courses are there in this campus. So I can just add only those courses. But students will keep changing. They'll be updated once in a while, or every year there'll be new students coming up. So I cannot show this drop down list as a static one. It should be a dynamic drop down list. So how do I do that? I need to use database again. Okay, so I'm going to use database and retrieve all the student details and display here only student names. Okay, the moment you choose a particular student, I am going to retrieve all his data and display them in appropriate spaces here. That's all. All right, and here instead of add student, let me just change the properties. I'll say btn insert, I'll change it into btn update, and here instead of add student, let me write it as update student details. Done. So I have got my update page ready. Design is very easy, guys. You can just reuse wherever is possible, whatever is possible. Not like Android where the names are going to be stored in one place. These, when you copy paste, it creates a new class, because insert is another class, update is another class. The names will not clash with each other. In Android, the names were clashing with each other. Here, you would not have that issue. Okay, so remember that. Now, what should I do? Okay, so before I proceed with the working, let me just explain what I'm trying to do. I am going to divide this program into 3 sections. Okay, I'm dividing this program into 3 sections. First section, retrieve all the student name and display it in this drop down list. As soon as the page loads, I want you to retrieve all the student names and display them in this particular drop down. First step. Second step, as soon as the user chooses a particular student's record from this drop-down list, retrieve all details of that student and display them in these corresponding controls. Second step. Third step, the moment the user clicks on update, change the values of this particular person, of this particular student in the database and show success message. Okay. It is divided into 3 sections. Let me repeat it once again. As soon as this page loads, I want you to retrieve all the student details and display them in this particular drop down. Second step, as soon as the drop down list gets changed, I want you to retrieve all the records of that particular student and display them correspondingly in this particular location. Third one, if you click on the update, just like insert how it happened, get the values and update the student record. That's it. Okay, I hope you got the flow. Let's start with this. So what am I doing first? First step, what we are going to do today is, as soon as the page loads, I would like this particular drop down list to be manipulated with the student's name. Okay. Now, there is a challenge in this. The reason is, please note, when it comes to a drop down list, okay, if I give the name as the key, it's a difficult thing because there might be two people with the same name. So it's very difficult for me to find out which student you're talking about. Okay, and there is a way in which you can map it to exactly one student with the register number, which means as a programmer, I am much more bothered about the unique value of a student, not the name of a student. Name is not unique, but the register numbers are. Okay, as a developer, you are much focused on the register number. As a user, register number is very difficult to remember. Okay, I don't remember any of your register numbers, but I know your names. I hope you follow. Okay, as a human, it's easy to remember the names, not the numbers. But when it comes to a computer remembers numbers better than, or database remembers, or database opts for a number than a string. Okay, so how do I make sure that it happens? Please remember how a drop down list will come back to the browser. When a drop down list comes back to the browser, the it becomes a select, right? Select slash select. Inside that you have option. Please note, option is the tag and you close the tag. What you write between option and slash option is only shown to the user. But what you give as a value attribute for the option is the one which passes in the URL. Okay, I'll show that in working once more, but please do remember, in drop down list in HTML itself, I'm telling, in HTML, select slash select, inside that you put number of options. Now the option, when you write less than option, then close it and then open one more slash option and you write whatever inside, that is only shown to the user. It is not going to the programmer. The programmer, what it goes is option value is equal to what you type there only goes. So there are two things. One is the text of the drop down list. Number two, the value of the drop down list. Okay, please remember these two keywords. With that, let's get into the picture here. Here, a lot of things will be put together, guys. So in one class, if you remember, I told you to remember one keyword and keep. Okay, I guess I'll take it when it comes. So let me just go back. Now I want to go to the page load event. First step of this particular procedure will be the page load event. Let's go to the code. So in the code, as soon as I come, the first line is page underscore load. Okay, so in page load, what do you want me to do? Okay, please note, as soon as the page loads, I would like you to retrieve all the students' register number and name and then put them correspondingly in the drop down list. This becomes a very, very tedious process when it comes to other programming languages like JSP, PHP, Python, wherever you take up, this becomes a very big headache for you. But in .NET, it is going to be very, very simple. Let's show how. Okay, first thing, as soon as the page loads, what do you want me to do? I want you to retrieve. Please remember the word, I want you to retrieve everything. So let's just do that, right? We have already retrieved something. So let me just take that code. Let me take this much. I think all the code is same. So let me just copy that. Let me go back. Let me paste it here. SQL connection again will throw an error. All the three will throw an error because they all come from a different namespace. So I'm going to say using system.data.sql client. Done. Okay. Now all these problems have gone. Here I don't want star. I don't want all the records. In the drop down, I only want student underscore ID and student underscore name. I guess that's the name which I've given. Let me just check. Please be very careful of the SQL command which you are giving. No mistakes allowed. Okay, it is not case sensitive, the query what you are writing, but the data is case sensitive. Remember that. Let me just see what data is already existing. At least the name, I want to keep that. Student underscore ID and student underscore name. Yes, those two I've taken. And those two will now be retrieved and put in the data reader. Okay. Now, be very careful, guys. I have given data reader. Till this, it is done. What is the next step? Where do you want this data or the source of this data to be attached to? I want this data source to be attached to this drop down list. Name of the drop down list is DDL students. So I'm going to say DDL students dot data source. The source of drop down list of students is equal to dr. Simple. I hope you follow. Okay. It's not done, guys. It's not enough. This is not enough information because a drop down list has two important things, text and value, just as I was discussing. So let me just show you. Drop down list dot of students dot let's say data text field. Please note, what is the text content of my drop down list? Text content is what will be shown to the user, not for the developer. Okay, what do you want me to show to the user? Okay, let me just write what is the column name. Please note, these column names will be now stored in data reader, and the data reader is now mapped to the data source of drop down list. So all I need to give here is the column name. So I'm going to say student underscore name. That is the column name. Be very careful. What name you typed here, same name you typed here. You are telling that the text field of my drop down list will be showing the student's name. Okay. Let me show the next one. What about the value? Okay, let me call data value field is equal to, what will be the value field? The next one, ID. So I'm going to say student underscore ID. Column names are very important here, guys. Remember that. Okay, so is that enough? No, it is not enough, because this is again the same logic as your retrieval. Data source is not enough. You need to also, last line, bind the data. Okay, so here drop down list dot data bind. Do not forget this line at the end of all binding controls. Okay, done. Here, please note, I have, however, made a mistake. I'll show you what is that mistake shortly. But remember, as soon as the page loads, okay, let me repeat that again. Every time the page loads, I want you to keep adding data to that particular drop down list. Let's run this program and check whether we get what we are looking for. Let me show you how this comes out to the browser. Okay, and if it works, let's see how HTML has been generated for the same code what I had written now. Okay, fine. By the way, here it is showing an error. The reason is, I hope you can make out what is the mistake. When I clicked on that button in insert, I created a method called btn insert underscore click. Okay, I have copy pasted that code, if you remember. Okay, when I copy pasted that code, I did not remove this method. So when I click on the button, this method will be searched for, and this button does not exist. This method does not exist in update because I copied the code. So let me go to the source. Let me fix that error. Okay, in the button, there is btn insert underscore click. Let me just delete that. It's not there. Okay, that's it. Let's run it once again and check whether it's the, I hope you got the error. I copied the code from insert to update, and but I did not remove the link to the btn insert underscore click. So I just removed it now. Now it should work properly. Okay, here. I wanted to see here, guys. All the student name is retrieved into the drop down list and displayed here. Okay. Only student names have been retrieved. Now, what I wanted to do is, I want to see how this HTML has come to the browser. Let me check the HTML part of it. Okay, let me just go to source. Okay, let me go to the drop down here. I hope you guys can see this output, what I've selected. Just look at the one which I've selected. That's more than enough to understand what we had written. Select. Please note, it was named as DDL students in my ASP.NET control. It was DDL students, but automatically everything is manipulated here. Select name is equal to DDL students. And then inside that option, value is equal to register number, text is name. Okay, let me show the code once again. Just have a glance. I have retrieved the data from the database and stored it in data reader. That's the source of my data. And I said DDL students, the drop down list, data source is equal to data reader. So the source has been mapped, but you should specifically tell what should be shown as the text field, what should be shown as the value field. I told text field is student name, value field is ID. So when it comes to the browser, how does .NET take it? Value is equal to 191701. That's the register number or the ID of the student. The text, what the user sees, will be the name. I hope you got it. So I choose Rajesh. That is for my understanding. For the system, this will be passed. It's easy now. Okay, so when I manipulate the code, I can easily manipulate the register number which I'm getting. Okay, so now let me show you what is another problem here. Let me just stop the program for a minute. Okay, now I'm going to, I hope you got this idea till now, guys. Let me just give one more concept and then I'll stop for today. There's a keyword which I told while I was taking ASP.NET. Okay. I don't know how many of you remember it. Let me just tell the keyword and let's see how many of you remember what it means. I had told you to remember a word called post back. I hope anybody, if anybody remembers, it'll be great. What does that keyword mean? I have told you about something called post back. What does that mean? Okay, I want you guys to find out before the next class so that we can start working with that. Okay, in the next class I'll be using postback in a detailed fashion. So find out what is postback and come or just recollect what we had seen in the last classes. And with this I'll stop for today, guys. If you have any questions, please do ask.